It'll be fine.
Do you want them to know it's a park?
Yeah.
Oh, so they come out here.
Right. Yeah. That's part of the.
Please come to the park.
Please come to the park, people. Yeah, like come fight with us at the park. we won't bite. We will kick, but we'll do so gently.
Now.
Okay, so I'm here today with Matthew Anderson, one of the instructors at Scott's Martial Arts, and I thought we would take a minute at the park just to talk about what he does there, what I'm trying to do here, and yeah. So you teach a lot of kids karate at Scott's. You have a good business with the younger kids, and I'm trying to get somewhat older, larger people interested in point fighting. I'm certainly happy to have kids here too with their parents, but my interest tends to be more toward the sport of karate, and yours is more well-rounded.
Right. Well, that's the problem with owning a business and trying to make money and trying to have fun with it. I think everyone's inclination goes towards adults and competition, but you have to work with your population, what the needs of that are. If they have money to offer, which if they don't, they get the boot, But that's the struggle, is finding that balance. And I would like adults, but if you're doing that here at the park, I'll just come to the park.
Right, okay.
That can be for fun.
And part of the reason I'm doing that here is because I do work out at Scott's from time to time. I'm mostly in Belton with Marty Knight Karate, but I work out at Scott's, and I wasn't finding people, and I really want people in Greenwood. There's a lot of history of people being here and point fighting.
Mm-hmm. Almost like an untapped market,
It feels like it should be, and I don't know why it's hard to sell that.
Yeah, I don't know. I can't wrap my head around it. Well, I was just talking to the Lander wrestling coach, Defay or some French name, and nice guy. Just he started the program in 2018, and they've already had a second place finish nationally for Division II, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But little Greenwood doing Division II runner-up nationally is crazy. And same with the film festival at Lander. They're pushing out good filmmakers, and I think one of the contestants that won way back when, I think he moved out to California and started writing scripts, and it's the community of talented people. It's just I don't know whether they falter in finding that thing that drives them, or if it's my failure for not pushing karate enough, or Dwayne, the former owner of the karate school. I wonder if it was part of his failing, or I don't know what the deal is. But even in Belton, there's good athletes. They just don't make it there for whatever reason.
Yeah, so these are a couple of interesting points. I want to check the sound. Be right back.
Okay, if you don't mind.
We're filming. Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Okay. So yeah, you made a couple of great points where both. I was talking to my co-host CW last week, and he said that someone brought to his attention that you're not necessarily competing with other karate schools when you start a school. When you start teaching, you're competing with everything else kids can do.
Yeah.
And if someone in the area, if there's people in the area doing things at a high level, that has a tendency maybe to attract the competitors.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Football is big in Greenwood anyhow, so that's where kids tend to go. It's not like wrestling is big in Greenwood. It's big in Ohio and Pennsylvania, I assume, but yeah, it's a good point.
And the feed-ins to that are also typically free.
Yeah.
It's hard to compete with free.
Oh yeah, no doubt.
And in Belton, I've heard my instructor say that all the kids, not only do they do these other things, the competitors necessarily, but everyone does everything.
Mm-hmm. So what does that mean?
Well, the kids play all the sports. The parents they take them to the other sports and they sign them up. So that creates this intermittency where they're coming for a while and then, it's the season for this or that, and they drop out and maybe they don't find their way back.
wonder if that's a good avenue to go down. Is well, they say get them while they're young. Teach them, especially with gymnastics in China, where they have those toddlers doing all those crazy exercises for their flexibility. I wonder if you could take that principle and do it for karate, because like a lot of kids, they start t-ball and then they move on to softball and baseball, and however that works. I don't know. I'm not an expert on that, but they have avenues of free competitions too. And point karate, it's you pay for the lessons, then you pay on top of that the fees for tournaments and travel expenses for that, and that's a whole complicated mess that most parents can't really handle. So I wonder if there's a way to get free competitions going.
Right. I don't know how much. From what I understand, the economics of karate tournaments are pretty good. That's I think that's hard.
Yeah.
I am one avenue I like a lot. I have a friend who in Belton, Garrett Lindley, who is running a program through his school. He has funding, so getting that funding to make it free for the kids, as I understand this is.
His program is karate?
It's karate. He teaches at some sort of magnet school.
Oh, wow.
And yes.
Wow.
I know.
That's pretty cool. How do you swing that?
Well, he's a teacher there.
Oh, okay. So he has ties.
Right. So it works it's sort of very well. But if there are more opportunities to do that, to make it free through the government funding indirectly, maybe. I don't know how that works. I shouldn't say too much.
Yeah. I wonder if I could talk to some, because I have good ties with principals all over Greenwood, but I wouldn't know how to go about that. I wouldn't even know how to go about it at Lander. That's the local university. I wouldn't know how to do anything. I have to ask someone at the lowest level and then work my way up like an idiot, because I don't know what I'm doing.
Right. And,
Kent, have you ever met Kent Cox, the bald guy? He teaches. He goes, I don't know anything about that. I just know how to kill people.
Right. Yeah. It's hard. You have to get a running start. Get everything right. It feels like.
Yeah. Planets have to align, right? Yeah.
So the business of karate interests me a lot, and also the mechanics though of teaching interests me a lot, and getting kids like to do things, because some of them are really engaged, some are producing. Like it's hard to run a school on competition, right? This is a theme I see over and over and over. And in the 90s, I saw the trophy escalation, where everyone got a bigger and bigger trophy until it was everyone gets a 6-foot trophy and black belts get a 7-foot trophy. And I probably shouldn't give away the secrets and devalue the trophies I have in storage, but that's how it worked, because everyone needed to feel good on the way out the door, so they'll come back. And and now
Brackett's doing that in Inman, isn't he?
He is, yes, and he has said that everyone has told him that you can't run a competition-oriented school, and
can't do it until you do it, right?
And I know he has a lot of students who are not competition students, so it ends up being this setup where, you have to have one to have the other. You have to have the non-competitive students, really, which just speaks to my other, people want different things,
right? And
so parents want one thing, and they're really your customers for minors. And they might want the discipline of karate, or they might want the daycare of karate.
Yeah, no kidding.
Or there's
that's karate teacher's least favorite thing, being a daycare center. Or a disciplinarian substitute. There's no alternative. You have to get it at home. Even teachers in public schools, they can't make up for it.
Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah, they can't do it. You need reinforcement. It needs to be at all levels. Well, being a good person is difficult, right?
It's hard.
Yeah.
And getting that solely, you can supplement.
Yeah, exactly.
But getting that solely at karate is, you prefer to have students that show up and want to learn.
Oh yeah. But that's been karate karate teacher's problem since the dawn of karate, you know.
So to me, the goal though is to get more out of each person. What can you get out of each person? Because some kids might need encouragement. Some might need you to push on them a little bit to get a reaction. And do you have any thoughts on that? How do you approach different people differently?
What I see from people is they tend to need one of three things, and there's your mind, body, and your soul. And your soul is like, how invested are you in karate? Like, that's not our lack. We're passionate. Our thing is to transfer that to other people. But that's where most people lack, is the enthusiasm, their soul or spirit or fighting spirit, whatever you want to call it. But some people are brainiacs and they can memorize hundreds of techniques or forms. They're really good at forms. They tend to be really good at forms and stuff like that.
I started as a forms competitor.
Yeah.
I was much better at forms than fighting and very rigid. And I see people like that now, like just spectruming kids.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And super. There's an oddly high number of those, it feels like, in Belton, and trying to get them out of their own head.
Oh, that's the way to get them engaged, though, is what they're lacking. What they're good at is not what they're lacking. Like I tend to be more enthusiastic than physically capable, so I had to work on my physical capabilities, and that boosted my enthusiasm because I was making progress.
Okay.
Or memorizing things, that was always my weakness too. The body and the mind was my weakness. So, to be clear,
that's a bad weakness to have.
Two bad ones for a physical endeavor.
So
right?
the soul though was good.
That was good. I was enthusiastic. That was it. I was a terrible athlete, and I was dumb to boot. You know.
Yeah.
So, but if you're lacking in, like, if you're good physically, tends to be a lot of wrestlers, for example. They tend to be really physically engaged, and brain doesn't really matter so much in wrestling because there's only so many goals and what you want, and so you have to nail the body and the enthusiasm, and so that's what wrestling spends their time doing, is just all body, all enthusiasm. And those people are well known worldwide for being some of the best competitors in anything. MMA, boxing, a lot of them transition to, and that's the same with karate, because people are people, whether they do wrestling, baseball, football, or whatever. And finding what people lack and raising that to the level of the rest of what they're good at, that's the ticket to making them better people, I think. I'm still 28 years old and figuring it out.
That's totally fair.
Yeah. Near as I can figure.
Mm.
What about you? What's your experience with that? Because you were teaching since the 90s, right?
I taught a little bit back in the 90s, not a lot. My memory's a little fuzzy on exactly how far that went, but the instructor at the school in '96, Dwayne Scott, started the school, or it was a night strike school, so it was in our system,
right?
And I wasn't there from day one, but I showed up. My best friend took there at the time, one of a couple of very close friends. Mm-hmm. So on a Monday, I went to Marty to sign up, knowing that I could take at both schools. And Tuesday, I went to Dwayne. So I started both in Greenwood with Marty Knight and in '96 with Dwayne Scott. And after time, Dwayne left and Bill Manley took over the school. His family, 4 black belts. And then he had a motorcycle accident. So I taught for a while when it wasn't clear which direction the school was going to go.
Which direction, meaning?
The '96 school with the instructor there, the active instructor there, being injured.
Oh, whether it was going to go belly up or?
Well, just I was young, and they owned the school. His wife continued to run the finances. So I was simply teaching while he was out.
Oh, okay.
And ultimately, he couldn't come back.
Oh.
So they closed down.
Okay.
So yeah, but I taught for a little while while they were out, and
what was how long did you do that for? Do you remember?
I honestly just don't remember.
It was a blur. It was a whirlwind.
It's 26 years ago, 7. I don't know.
About my lifetime ago. Yeah.
Wow.
That's a perspective, right?
Do not make me feel old. Do not.
This is not shame. You can kick higher than me. How about that? Age is who's the guy who was rolling on the ground? Not plyometrics. Pilates. What is his name? Joseph Pilates. He said, "You're only as old as your spine." He said, "If you can move your spine, you're young. If you can't, you're old." Not the number.
So yeah, a lot of my thoughts on teaching though have been pretty recent, and honestly, a lot of how we learned in the 90s was we just watched other people and tried to fight like that. It was before YouTube. YouTube is amazing now. One of the themes of fitness and point play is that you need people to practice with, but you can watch YouTube and get a lot of the techniques down. And one of the most talented people I've seen in recent history was a student of yours. I don't know, Bentley.
I can't remember his last name.
Okay. Yeah. Maybe we don't want to say that anyway.
Yeah.
But Bentley.
12 years old, tall, athletic, nimble.
And I walked in and I saw him fight. It was different from everyone else. And I simply said, "You watch YouTube, don't you?"
Yeah.
And he said yes. And I'm like, "Have you seen Bailey Murphy?" And he lit up. He said, "That's my favorite fighter." And yeah, it's like he didn't need the people around him to show him how to fight. He just needed the people around him to practice with.
Yes.
And I saw him at a tournament, and someone who was more experienced under tournament conditions, he scored a couple of points, and then the kid got his head together and just out-timed him because he was comfortable in the ring. He went somewhere every week and fought, and Bentley lost. But you need the people to fight with.
Yes.
And you turn on YouTube for the visual aid.
Yeah, that's monkey see. Now monkey got to do, right? You know,
right? And he did it, and he was excited. He was the only kid I saw up at when Joseph Brackett up in Inman had Bailey in. I come from Greenwood, and then I saw Bentley. He was the only person here who came because he was excited by YouTube and by what he saw.
That medium, also not only that, but it connects the world over. I don't know if you've noticed this in recent years, but the Southern accent is kind of a thing of the past because everybody now is on TikTok and YouTube, and they're seeing. I don't have to talk like a man with dip. You know, they don't have to speak like the mountain man. They can speak like anybody else, so that it's affecting language. It's affecting how people practice anything, weightlifting included, and.
That progression is super interesting because I lived in Vegas for a while, and people in Vegas said, or people here will tell me I sound like I'm from the north.
Yeah.
And people in other places will still say you sound like you're from the south.
Yeah.
But it's much lighter, and I just tell people that I thought I had the homogenized 90s pop culture accent.
There you go.
And now, but YouTube is taking that to another level, and I hadn't even considered that. That's
yeah. Karate's trajectory is interesting. I think I don't want to make predictions, but I think it's going to make a comeback because when you watch the UFC, I don't know that you watch the UFC or if anyone watching this watches UFC, but the meta of the MMA community seems to be going back towards specialization. So it started with people would start with Greco-Roman or wrestling or jiu-jitsu or Shotokan karate, and they would start with these specific niche martial arts. Aikido was in the first UFC, sumo wrestling, and they realized they whittled it down. Oh, you have to be good at a little bit of striking, a little bit of clinch work, a little bit of whatever, and on and on. And so they formed this MMA style training, which is really just parts of different martial arts that they think are the best parts, like jabs of boxing, and they whittled it down to this broad category of martial arts. And then now that it's been 30 years, the UFC's been going on, 93, 30 years.
Wow.
Probably. So
I remember the friend that got me involved in karate, he would watch the Octagon before, I think it was before it was the UFC.
Yeah.
And when it was still like no rules.
Yeah, yeah.
People would like lose their eyes.
Yes.
It's just, I wanted no part of that.
Yeah.
For anyone, that's not what we do here.
Yeah, point and play. I also like my brain function.
Right. This is light contact.
Yeah. But you've seen that it whittled down to what's that thing where it hourglassed, it bottlenecked, I guess you could say, into a broad category, and then now that it's relaxing, it's constrained. You still have to know some things from jiu-jitsu and a little bit of wrestling, but it's relaxed to the point where you can specialize again. Like most of the champions, I think, now are from different disciplines, and that's mainly what they train. And point karate is always fun to watch. So you'll see people transition from point karate into these large arenas where they can draw from any style, and point karate is making a comeback in those arenas, like Wonder Boy in the UFC, Michael Venom Page in Bellator, Raymond Daniels in Glory, and they're making these names for themselves, and those people are outstanding strikers, not because they started with kickboxing and boxing, but they're doing point karate is there. And I wonder if Bailey Murphy has any plans to transition. I doubt he would, because he's so successful at point karate.
I've heard he has some interest, but I don't know the details, so I shouldn't comment beyond that.
But that style is so, it works in a no rules situation. Well, as no rules as you can get and still be legal, and it works for children because it's light contact. It progresses naturally, and I think that's really the most valuable thing about karate, and that's why I think it's going to make a comeback.
Okay, it's nice to hear some thought, because I've heard you say that before.
Yeah. And
we haven't really discussed it in depth, but to hear from someone who watches UFC, because I don't, that there is that arc that could bend back toward karate.
So applicable. It stylistically makes so much sense, because when you're point fighting, you're cutting off a ring or whatever you're fighting in, and you're trying to get to a position where you can score and they can't score, and anything that is a competition with striking involved has to go off of points. Like boxing, they judge it off a 10-point must system, and that's all point based. And point karate, it just makes so much sense. Taekwondo makes a big rise too, and that's so similar to point karate that it's often spoken in the same breath, and that's why, because it's so important.
Let me do another sound check.
You post them on YouTube?
Yes. I have a fitness and point play channel that I think.
I thought you were posting on Facebook.
Well, the fitness and point play channel I sent you a link to was to YouTube.
Right.
And that was originally for an out-of-state market for people I know from Twitter. But
like friends in Vegas? No,
these are just. This is a specific community that kind of coalesced on Twitter from the tech community, really.
Oh, okay.
So yeah.
So when you teach, what's your? I'm sorry if I'm off topic.
No, like this is supposed to be just a conversation. This is a podcast, and I'm looking for different points of view when it comes to business, to teaching, to technique, to all of it.
Okay. So when you're teaching, I've taken a few of your classes, but it was for an end result. It was for a product.
And that was the presentation that I gave to this group of people. We kind of got together up in Maryland, and recently we got hit pieced by a think tank. Fun story. Maybe I'll tell you later.
Fun.
Yeah. So yeah, but I practiced at your school when I recorded it, and I was never really satisfied with the results of those recordings. I'm going to re-record. I was really happy with the presentation. I had about 15 to 20 people show up in Maryland, and people enjoyed it. Good. And I'm going to re-record the history that I went through of point fighting technique as I saw it.
That would be very cool to put up on YouTube. That's such a seminar class kind of things. Like that was kind of like a seminar, right?
Yeah.
That's so cool to put up on YouTube, and
thank you.
People can see that kind of stuff, especially with that class. Like it's at the same time a workout, a history lesson, an introductory class. It's all of that, and it's all in one place, and that's very cool.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I haven't really been able to share that with anyone locally, because I haven't done the re-recording, and I haven't really wanted to put out what I had. It was a little, but yeah, that's amazing to hear.
Yeah.
And that's the end of part 1. Hit like and subscribe so you don't miss part 2. See you next time. Thank you very much.